Yes, sir, we are live. We can begin.
Hello everyone, dear friends. It is good to connect to you on this platform of IFS, that is Vibrate, and I welcome you all to this session on endoscopy and in infertility. I am Dr. Kuldeep Jain, Director, KJ IVF and Laparoscopy Center, Delhi. I am the founder secretary and past president of Indian Fertility Society, and I have been endometriosis committee chairman of FOXY. I have been associated with the field of endoscopy as well as ART for last 35 years and served in various positions in FOXY. My last tenure as endometriosis committee FOXY was really very exciting, and I had connected a lot of FOXians during that time, and this gave me a impetus to uh, work more for FOXy in a bigger role. So now I am your candidate for Vice President FOXy this year. So I seek your blessings and support in coming election of FOXy. Coming on to the topic of today, it is very relevant for all endoscopic surgeons who are dealing with the infertile patients, as well as for all ART consultants who are uh, doing ART and taking the help of endoscopic surgery. So it is applicable to both. Endoscopy actually has been there as a very important tool in infertility workup, and in last 30 years, this is one of the advance uh, in infertility management. If we see that there are two great advancement in infertility management. One is ultrasonography, apart from ART, of course. One is ultrasonography, and second is endoscopy. We have been using endoscope since it was invented, but over the period, there are a lot of advances in the uh, system, in the energy sources, as well as in the magnification in camera has come, and that's why it has become very easy to see the pathology and correct it. These are some instruments which are normally used for endoscopic surgery, whether it is cystoscopy surgery or laparoscopic surgery. So in today's talk, I will be discussing all procedures which are helpful in enhancing the fertility, whether it is cystoscopic procedure or laparoscopic procedure. Uh, these procedures, they can enhance the fertility by themselves, or they are used in conjunction with what you call ART procedures. So we will be discussing first the hysteroscopy. I will be taking you through some of the video clips, which will give you a insight how you can use endoscopy for the benefit of your infertile patients. So these are the instruments which are used for infertility surgery. Principles of endoscopy in infertility need to be remembered. Here, most of the surgery in infertile patients, it is not complete surgery. It is a conservative surgery because you can't remove anything from infertile patient until unless it is damaged. So most of the time, what we are doing, it is a corrective surgery, whether it is histoscopic correction or laparoscopic correction. So we need to have little more care. When it is a complete surgery, you have to remove something. It becomes very easy. But when you have to conserve something, the you have to be little more careful in preserving the organ, especially the ovary, tube, fimbria, and endometrial cavity. So all principles of microsurgery needs to be taken into account. Like we have to have a very good magnification, we have to have meticulous hemostasis. Prevention of tissue desiccation is very important. Otherwise, it leads to the adhesion formation. Handling of the tissue is very important. Even with the endoscopy, if you are not very careful in handling, then tissue damage will occur, and that will be counterproductive. Usually, we avoid suturing in these patients because again, there are the chances of higher chances of the adhesions, intraperitoneal adhesions. So we should avoid suturing, and then atraumatic handling and all methods of adhesion prevention should be taken in care. These are various tools in hand which we used during surgery. One is coagulation, cutting, irrigation, suction, suturing, blunt dissection, sharp dissection, aqua dissection, electro dissection, and laser dissection. Basic energy sources, we use almost all type of energy sources, but mainly the bipolar energy is used in infertile patients. Monopolar is to be restricted, and of course, whenever required, we can use harmonic scalpel, especially in myomectomy and other prolonged surgeries. These are some of the recent advances which have come to help to minimize the lateral damage as well as to give a faster approach to dissection, like harmonic ACE, ultrasonic energy system. Then there's Legacior system, especially in those cases where the bleeding, etc., is there, and then NCL system. Coming on to the hysteroscopic procedures, why hysteroscopy? There are a lot of advantages of hysteroscopy. Basically, this is a tool with all clinicians, and this should be used more and more to get better outcome in infertile patients. It provides direct visualization, opportunity to correct the abnormality at the same sitting. It helps in counseling, and of course, simple and relatively safe. All procedures, they carry some disadvantage also, but hysteroscopy is relatively safe and easy to learn. Uh, Various procedures which I am going to show you, and they are of relevance in infertile patients, are intrauterine adhesions, because endometrium, is the important part of the infertile investigation. And whenever we are having a defective endometrium or the intrauterine pathology, the implantation rate as well as the pregnancy, continuation of pregnancy rates are low. So intrauterine adhesions, when we talk, they could be of any grade. They are classified as grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and grade 4 by Esserman. This is a case, you can see here the whole cavity of the uterus is filled with various types of adhesion. They are thin as well as thick. So when you are dealing with this type of cavity in infertile patients, until unless you correct it by hysteroscopy, you cannot get a success. Now, this particular patient had a patent tube. So tubes were patent, but somehow these adhesions were missed during hysterosalpingography. Usually, you can pick up these type of adhesion on hysterosalpingography and ultrasound, but unfortunately, this patient continued to have 6 cycles of IUI with this type of adhesions, and all failed. So these type of adhesions, they can easily be picked by hysterosalpingography as well as on ultrasound. And before planning any procedure, you need to correct them. For adhesiolysis, we usually use micro scissors, as I am using it here, and they need to be in correct plane. In hysteroscopy, we are having only 3 points to work with. two are ostia and one is uh, what you call internal os. So you have to work in between these three areas. The procedure of adhesiolysis could be very simple and could be very complicated. So it depends on the expertise of the surgeon as well as the severity of the disease. Here, because I could see the normal endometrium also in between, and it was not completely obliterated cavity, so it is a little easier dissection. Usually we don't use any current whenever we are doing adhesiolysis, because if you are destroying the basement membrane of the endometrium, then the chances of regeneration becomes less. But in severe cases, you may have to use current, like on the lateral side, it is difficult to dissect with the scissor. So in lateral, whenever we are doing lateral metroplasty, you can see here, this is the right lateral wall, and this was adhesions. So it it is I'm using a very low current, so that you have to remember that low current needs to be used in all these patients. And uh, another point which you need to remember, you cavity possible in one sitting. Now here you can see the whole cavity is nicely visible. The vascularity is again focal. This is the fundus, and here the vascularity is less. I am able to see both the ostia now very clearly, and these patients, they should go for a long course of estradiol valerate. Usually we give 3 to 6 weeks of estradiol valerate, maybe sometime in grade 4 SRMN. We usually give it for a longer period. And this is very important in all intrauterine adhesion patients or all intrauterine surgeries, that there should not be any adhesion formation. Uterus is a potential cavity, and uh, adhesion formation is very easy there. So if the epithelialization is not taking place in time, then the adhesion formation is there. So estradiol valerate in high doses, 6 milligram, is required to have regeneration of fresh endometrium. Now, this is the case, you can see the Esserman grade 4. So, it is not only the cavities which are having less adhesions, you may have to deal with this type of cavity also. Now, these are having very bad prognosis. Usually, these patients, they have very scanty periods or amenorrhea, and usually they don't respond to your estrogen therapy. There is no thickening of the endometrium even with a high dose of endometrium. These patients, they have only two options: either you correct the cavity, try to get maximum volume of the cavity by your hysteroscopy. Here only 20% of the cavity, you can see only 20% of the cavity in the lower half is visible, upper cavity is not seen at all. And these patients, they really pose a challenge, because they are very high risk of going into the wrong plane. So you see, whenever you are having such type of patient, you require a lot of expertise uh, uh, to avoid any intra myometrial invasion by your forceps or seizure. And you have to keep them in the transverse, blade should be always in transverse plane, and you should be doing the adhesiolysis very slowly under vision, and distension system should be very good. So here you can see it may take a lot of time. Uh, Once you start seeing the cavity beyond, then the dissection becomes easier. This is, of course, a very bad case. She had history of genital tuberculosis, uh, and even in these cases, if you go ahead with ART, the chances are very poor, until unless you have created a very good cavity. So here you can see now I am able to see the inside of the cavity after a very extensive adhesiolisis. This is the last part of the procedure, and you can see here the right hand side and on the left hand side, both sides there are adhesions, again very thick adhesions. So it usually takes a lot of time. The endpoint, either you should be able to see at least a ostia. Now here you can see the ostia. I will again show you. This is the ostia on this side, and at the end of the procedure, almost 70 to 80% of the cavity was visible, and these all patients with intrauterine adhesiolisis, they should be followed by ultrasound for the regeneration of the endometrium as well as color flow. If you are able to get a endometrium of 7 millimeter after this adhesiolisis, and of course the character usually is not very good, but these patients they stand some chance in conception by ART procedure. So many times you have to do a repeat hysteroscopy, in this case second look histoscopy, if you are not able to get a good endometrium on follow up. So these patients they require a lot of counseling, otherwise the expectations becomes very high. So the counseling and poor prognosis needs to be told to these patients before you attempt intrauterine adhesiolisis in Asherman syndrome, because out of 10 patients you may not have any improvement in 50% of the cases of grade 4 Asherman syndrome. Another procedure which is very helpful, as you know that anything in the cavity, whether it is a polyp or submucous myoma in the cavity, will inhibit the chance of implantation. So you can see again these fibroids which are submucous. This patient had three intra cavitary fibroid. One is here. This is bigger, and these fibroids they are you can see they are very with very large base. So if they are pedunculated fibroid, the chances of damage to endometrium is less. But sometime when there are multiple fibroid in the cavity, you will have to dissect them properly so there is minimal damage to the endometrium. Now, here I am using a resectoscope, because these fibroids they are the fibrous and no other instrument. Of course, now the uh, morcellator, histoscopic morcellator are available, but they are not available with everyone. So one can use the resectoscope, either the monopolar current, or now we are having the bipolar resectoscope also. So we can use them. The problem in these patients when you are doing the myomectomy by resectoscope, the chunks they need to be removed in between, and until unless you see the myometrium, you have to dissect, because in this 50% of the myoma was inside and 50% of the myoma was within the myometrium. So sometime it may seem that you have created a very large crater, but usually the at the second look, uh, the cavity looks quite good after myomectomy, and all these patients they fare very well after myomectomy as far as the pregnancy rates are concerned. Again, the post-operative period is very, very important. There should not be any adhesion formation, and they should be given estradiol valerate for a longer period to avoid any intrauterine adhesion. This is another method of those fibroids. Now here you can see this is the bulge, and this bulge is very subtle. At the junction only, this is the bulb, and you can see very large area needs. If you scoop it with the resectoscope, then large area will be of endometrium will be sacrificed. So this is a new method of flap method, where I am creating a flap of the endometrium, and I am going within inside the flap to remove the uh, fibroid, because the fibroid is very small. So now what I have done, I have created a flap. You can see this is the flap, and at the end of the procedure, this flap is going to cover whole defect. So there is no loss of endometrium. I am just giving a circular incision in the endometrium, and then reaching to the fibroid. So this is a method which is actually very helpful in those cases. So now you can see this is the fibroid inside, and I am using a monopolar cautery here, because here you cannot use the scissor. This is a fibrous tissue, and now you can see the removal of the uh, fibroid from the uh, within the myometrium is being carried out. So this is a very good method in those cases where you are having a very broad-based, very subtle lesion, which might cause problem in the implantation. So all these fibroid, any small fibroid or a large fibroid, which is actually within the transformation zone, or within the endometrial myometrial junction, you have to remove it. Another problem of intrauterine cavity is the septum. Again, the septum can cause the chances of miscarriage, as well as the uh, difficulty in conception. So here you can see this is again very broad septa. So septa could be uh, two types. Thin septa, they are easy to dissect, but when the septa is very thick and broad based, then you have to be little careful. And whatever procedures I have told you, they are they could be easily done, but at same time you require a lot of expertise when you are dealing with difficult cases. So here you can see the yeah. So here you can see the septa now very clearly, and there is a deep cornu, and this is a very thick septa. So I'm using a Collins knife here, and you can see you have to go from one side to other side. Uh, so you can because in this patient, because the septa is very thick, so the distension problem usually with thick septa is there. Otherwise, when you are cutting the septa, the cavity expand very nicely, but here the septa you can see is so thick septa that even after dissection the cavity is not opening up very properly. So until unless we complete the septal resection, it may not open up. Now, how far you have to go, that you have to map when you are doing. Otherwise, you may perforate the uterus. So, whenever you start seeing the ostia in one plane, you should stop. So that is the end point. And whenever you start seeing the crisscross fibers of myometrium, then so now you can see I can see the ostia. So at least 1.5 centimeter from the ostia, you should stop your dissection on both sides. So when you are able to see the ostia clearly from the internal os, then you can stop. Again, these patients, they do require a post-operative follow-up with estrogen. So estrogen is given in all cases to have a better regeneration. Now this is another procedure which is very rewarding. So whenever you are having a patient who is having only cornual block. The tubal cannulation can be done. This is the 5 French tubal cannulation set having a outer sheath with stellate, and then this is the inner catheter guide wire. uh, and you can see usually we don't do the complete that is not required complete cannulation. Once you have done up to this place, you can remove the guide wire, but in this case you can see the guide wire can easily be passed. So it was this procedure is very rewarding. You can see the nice methylene blue has come out. On other side also you can see this is covered with adhesions, and this is the outer sheath which is going in. You have to just focus in the center. The ostia, now ostia is opened up, and you have to put the guide wire. Now, tubal cannulation is successful only in those cases where there is only cornual problem. If there is a fimbria or the endosalpingitis is there, fimbria is damaged, then usually tubal cannulation should not be done. So you have to see the rest of the tube is normal looking, then this procedure could be very rewarding. Otherwise, when there is bipolar disease, like at cornua also and fimbria also, the cannulation should not be tried, and these patients they should go for directly for IVF. So here again you can see the nice fimbria after the procedure. Another pathology which is very common in infertile patients, you can see the endometriosis. And endometriosis is a disease which can really be very frustrating to treat, especially in infertile patients. Here you can see the surface endometriosis. So it needs to be again tackled in all patients. And laparoscopy is one important tool in the hand of all infertile consultants. So it needs to be used very judiciously in endometriosis patient. Here you can see the tube. Usually in endometriosis, tubes are normal. They may be adherent. Here you can see there is slight adhesions uh, in the lateral part. Uh, so, and you can see the ovary on right hand side is adherent. There is no endometrioma as such, but the ovary is adherent to the ovarian fossa. So that needs to be lifted by blunt dissection, and you can use hydrodissection here to get a good plane. And whenever there is a vital organ like fimbria adherent, then you should do a sharp dissection to avoid any injury. So now the ovary is lifted. You can see the active endometriosis here, and there is a surface endometriosis. You can see in the pouch of Douglas also, these are the spots. And once you have done the dissection, you have done the tuboperitoneal, this tubo-ovarian relations are maintained, then you can do the fulguration of all endometriosis. Here you can see all types of lesion. They are the white lesions, they are the brown lesions, and they are red lesions. These are the lesions on the posterior surface of the uterus. So all needs to be fulgurated before you come out. Uh, this type of procedure is supposed to be again very rewarding if done properly. Post laparoscopic surgery, there is no need to wait for a longer period. These patients they fare very well by IUI. So what is the recommendation after laparoscopic surgery, surgical correction in grade 1 and grade 2 endometriosis? There should not be any wait for spontaneous conception, because endometriosis is a progressive disease. You do whatever you can, but recurrence rates are always there. And recurrence in endometriosis surgery depends on two things: at what stage you are doing the dissection, what severity you are doing the dissection, and how best you have done the correction. So once you have corrected the tubo-ovarian relationship and you have fulgurated all endometriosis, if you plan IUI in these patients for 3 cycles, the fecundity rate will quite promising. But if you continue to wait for a normal, because normal fecundity is not very good even after the laparoscopic surgery. There are a lot of literature available which are suggesting, and even SRA guidelines are same, that for grade 1, grade 2, after endometriosis surgery, you have to go for. And this is, you can see the end of the procedure. Tubes are usually free of any disease. Fimbria are very good, looking very good. So this type of endometriosis surgery is really helpful in enhancing the fertility. Now coming on to the grade 4 endometriosis, here you can see it is basically surgery for reductive surgery. So you are reducing the burden of the disease and going ahead for ART. You can see there are large bilateral endometrioma on both sides. The bowel is adherent, POD is adherent. You can see here the bowel is just adherent. So here you have to be little careful, and you should do the sharp dissection near the bowel to avoid any injury to the serosa and lumen. So otherwise you can do a blunt dissection in these patients, and this is active disease. You can see here the fimbria is just adherent with the tube, and there is a lot of active disease. So I have just removed, separated, and now you can open the endometrioma and remove it. So ideally it is the removal of the whole cyst. So cystectomy is performed, but you have to be very careful when you are doing the cystectomy in these patients. The main concern is you should not harm the ovarian reserve. And there are a lot of paper again which have shown that even after the careful removal of the cystectomy, there is a lot of damage to the normal tissue because it is a pseudocyst. So usually the cleavage is not very good, and you tend to remove the normal tissue also. There is a study which has compared the cystectomy, normal cystectomy, and endometriosis cystectomy. In endometriosis cystectomy, almost 60% patients showed a very low AMH and ovarian reserve after the surgery. When compared to the normal cystectomy, only 20% had decreased AMH. So there is a lot of difference in endometriotic cyst removal as well as the normal cyst removal. So here the tricks are, you have to be in right plane. You should use lot of hydrodissection and try to minimize the damage. In large cyst, you can combine the fulguration as well as the cystectomy to preserve the ovary. And here you can see now the whole pouch is very clean. I have fulgurated all posterior surface to minimize the burden of the disease. As much as you can do, you should minimize, but you have to keep in mind that you have to play safe. There should not be any iatrogenic complication when you are doing the endometriosis surgery. So try to minimize the damage here. And these patients, they fare very well in ART after the cystectomy. Coming on to the PID cases where you may find this type of cavity. Now, should we continue to do the adhesiolysis in these patients in this era of ART? That is a debatable question, but this is of course a old video when the ART was not very prevalent, and then we used to do this type of surgery. Nowadays, usually this type of surgery is not preferred. Patients should go directly for IVF. Here you can see they are very thick adhesions with the tube and ovary and bowel. Even the outline of the tube is not very visible, so I had to cannulate from inside. But in this patient, the positive thing was there was no history of tuberculosis. So if a patient is having tuberculosis and this type of adhesion, you should not attempt the tubal surgery. Only those patients where the fimbria uh, there is no endosalpingitis, there is only extrasalpingitis, then this type of adhesiolysis might be required. So you can see I have put a cannula to straightening the tube. So now you can see as we progress into the dissection, you can see that part of the tube is freed, and this is the area where the ovarian ligament is coming. So when you are with the important near the important structures like ovarian ligament, fimbria, or this bowel, you have to be little careful not to damage. Now here you can see this is the lateral end, and fimbria is not seen at all. So a TO mass is formed along with the bowel. I continued the dissection, and you can see here now the lateral portion of the uh, tube is visible, and you can see the amount of adhesions in the ovarian fossa. So, but these type of surgery may be rewarding in some of the patient. Of course, again you have to counsel the patient the prognosis when you are doing this type of surgery. Otherwise, if there is a endosalpingitis or history of COX, now here you can see the fimbria is looking quite healthy after the dissection. So this is the last part of the dissection uh, before freeing the tube, and this is the pseudocyst. You can see at the undersurface of the ovary. So ovary needs to be, if you want to give her a fair chance, then ovary needs to be completely freed, and tubo-ovarian relations should be maintained at the end of the surgery. So this is the last part of the dissection. You can see now the deroofing is done and the ovary is completely free. And this is a dye test. So what I mean to say here is one can attempt a tubal correction if there is no internal tubal damage. Otherwise, these patients they should go for ART. Uh, Hydrosalpins are again a very important pathology, and here you can see again this patient had a PID, severe PID, and there is adhesions near the fimbria, and that's why this whole tube is dilated. Rest of the tube is looking normal. There was no history of tuberculosis, and here I had done a cup salpingostomy after removing the adhesions. So here you can see this is the fimbria. Again, usually we don't use any current near the fimbria, but this was very thick adhesion, and so I had to use a very small current here to free the fimbria. And once the fimbria is visible, the things becomes easy. So now the fimbria is separated. This whole fimbria was very within the adhesion. So freeing of the fimbria is very, very important before you do the cup salpingostomy. And then there is the fibriolysis also is required, because there are a lot of adhesions within the fimbria. So they need to be cut either by scissor or by a very small current. So you can just open up the fimbria, and now you can see the inside of the cavity, inside of the fimbria. Lumen is seen, and at the end of the procedure you have to just evert it. So use the bipolar current here, and you can see, you can put a stethoscope actually inside after the procedure. As far as the fimbria is seen, it is looking quite healthy inside, so there is no internal damage. And this is the eversion of the cup salpingostomy. So you can see now it is just like a flower. And these patients again can conceive, but don't wait for quite long here. If they don't conceive, these patients should go for ART. Now, another treatment for hydrosalpinx is removal, which is very important when you are going for ART. And sorry, whenever you are going for ART, uh, and if you find this type of TO mass, uh, then if you continue to go for ART with hydrosalpinx, then the chances of success becomes low. So in this patient, you can see there are a lot of adhesions also in the pouch of Douglas. And so before removing the tube or salpingostomy, there are two things. Either you can do the salpingostomy, or you have to go for clipping of the tube. So either of the thing can be done. But here this patient was having a lot of pain also, so I decided to go for salpingostomy. And this patient had a lot of history of tuberculosis also. So you can see this is the lateral part of the hydrosalpinx, and you can remove the tube by dissecting near the whenever you are doing the salpingectomy, you should try to preserve the blood flow to the ovary, because there are the reports after salpingectomy the patient went for perimenopausal hormonal profile. So there was a decreased AMH, and the ovarian reserve is lost. So here you can see after the salpingectomy, and there was again lot of adhesions with the tube. You can see here, this is the part of the ovary which needs to be tackled properly. Uh, so here, this is because of a lot of adhesions on the ovarian surface. So at the end of the procedure, you have to maintain the hemostasis, and there should not be any bleeding at the end of the procedure. So this is the final picture, and on the other side, this is what I am doing, is the blocking the cornu. So this is either you can apply a clip here, or you can just do the fulguration to block the tube on other side. Uh, Coming on to the last two videos, this is again myoma. When the myoma is large, there are a lot of debate which myoma should be removed, which should not be removed. Here you can see it is a large myoma which is being done, the myomectomy. And when the myoma is more than 5 centimeters, certainly it may interfere with the implantation process. So patient who are going for ART or for other infertility treatment, and if they are having myoma, they are having reduced fertility, and that's why myomectomy becomes very important. Endoscopy has played a very important role in these patient management of myoma. So usually we use vasopressin to remove to reduce the blood loss. So before the procedure, the vasopressin was used, and now you can see the myoma is being enucleated. This is a large myoma, so needs to be removed uh, very carefully to minimize the bleeding. There are various methods of removal. What I do is the uh, traditional way. We apply the myoma screw and give the traction, and by traction you can see the plane, and then you can dissect. You keep on changing the myoma screw placement to give the traction in right direction. That is very important. If you are not giving the traction in right direction, then usually it takes more time. There is a lot of bleeding. So try to find out the right plane, and then things become easier. So here again, now this is the last part of the removal. Again, the traction is being given. Uh, Usually, with large myoma, if it is going deep up to the endometrium, then endometrial cavity is opened. Now, in this case, the cavity was not opened. So then you can suture with using barbed wire, and this is the last part. So this is removed, and then cavity can be sutured. Again, the hemostasis is very important whenever you are doing the myomectomy, or for that matter adenomyomectomy. You can see this large adenomyoma. So again, it is a difficult surgery. Adenomyomectomy is difficult than myomectomy, and one should have a lot of expertise when we are dealing with these adenomyoma. The problem here is the bleeding is more. There is no plane here. In myoma, when you are dealing with myoma, the planes are there. So here you can't just give the traction and enucleate. Here you have to use either the scissor to separate adenomyoma from the uh, myometrium, or you can use the current. So here you can see again it is a very large adenomyoma, and I am using current here to cut the, as there you enucleate it with the help of unipolar current. Again, it takes lot of time. The hemorrhage is more when you are doing the adenomyomectomy, comparing with the myoma. But these adenomyoma can be removed easily with the expertise. You can see the amount of traction as well as the dissection is required to remove these large adenomyoma. My experience with adenomyomectomy has been quite okay, because these patients, they are very difficult to treat. If you have not removed the adenomyosis or adenomyoma, usually the conception rate are very low, and even if the patient conceives, then miscarriage rates are very high. So, though it is not a primary procedure in infertile patient, but if your procedure is failing or the size of uterus is very big, then you may have to go for the procedure. So, either failed cases uh, after ART, or very large myoma, then it becomes a fruitful procedure. So, coming at the end of the today's talk, I have tried to include the cases which were of interest. and I hope uh, they were useful for your day-to-day practice. There are some practical tips on hysteroscopy. Plan in post-menstrual phase. So it's sort of always you plan in post-menstrual phase because you are doing a procedure also, corrective procedure. So if you are doing it in the premenstrual phase, then the results are not very good. You may not get a proper plane. Cervical preparation, usually I use misoprost. So because it is a nulliparous cervix, so it is better to use misoprost. Uh, Use a small diameter stethoscope first. Uh, Nowadays we are having office cystoscopy to get in, but when you are you know that there is some uh, intrauterine pathology, then it is better you have both, and it should be done under anesthesia, so you can complete the procedure at the same time. So use a small diameter cystoscope first, visualize the cavity, visualize the location of the pathology, and then insert the uh, thicker cystoscope with the operating sheath. Pre-procedural TBS is very, very important. Mapping is very important. And many times in intrauterine adhesion, when you are dealing with grade 4 SRMN, then interoperative, intraoperative ultrasound may be very helpful. Liberal use of estrogen, as I have already stressed on this point, 6 to 8 week post-radiololysis. Use under ultrasound or laparoscopic control in difficult cases, and good distension system. And finally, because hysteroscopy, we are having the two problems. One is there should not be any air going into the system. Otherwise, it may lead to a fatality, pulmonary embolism, and then strict input-output control should be there. So there should not be any overload. Practical tips for laparoscopy: minimal and judicious use of energy sources, very important. Use of vital tissue sparing technique in endometriosis surgery, stripping in right plane to minimize ovarian tissue damage, use of hydrodissection, use of vasopressin during myomectomy and adenomyomectomy to avoid hemorrhage, and detailed counseling of limitation and realistic prognosis, especially in tubal surgery. That is very, very important. And all patients, they need a lot of counseling before, because you are doing a conservative surgery, that they should know. They should know the limitation of the surgery and prognosis. So these three things are very important when you are dealing uh, with infertile patient and doing endoscopic surgery. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Uh, Let me see if there are any questions here.
Yeah, hello, doctor. Now we can go for the question and answer session now. So come back to the browser. Yes, perfect.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, sir.
Yeah. Should I stop sharing screen
Yes,
or?
yes, yes. Yes, you have to stop, sir.
Okay. Mm.
Okay. So now come back to this sheet, sir. Question sheet.
Where is the seat? I can't see. This, okay. Yeah.
So there are questions coming in from Richa and Bhatt, Rahul Bhatt, everyone.
Yes, yes. Yeah. First question is from Dr. Richa. She's from Mumbai. Can you elaborate some more details about the disadvantages of hysteroscopy? Uh, I will not say disadvantage of hysteroscopy. I think you are meaning with the complications of hysteroscopy. Is that right? I don't know. But there are advantages of hysteroscopy. Disadvantages are not many. Of course, you have to have complications in mind. Hysteroscopy is very simple procedure, easy to learn, but it has been associated with few complications, and all complications, they can be easily prevented, especially the fluid overload. Uh, if you are just planning a diagnostic hysteroscopy, you should be going without any dilatation. Use minimal fluid, and there should not be any air in the circulation. So these three things are very important. And when you are converting into the operative hysteroscopy, then of course you should be confident enough to perform that case. You should be having a idea that how long surgery is going to last, so to minimize the overload, and keep a strict input output charting. If there is a fluid deficit more than 1000, you should stop whatever you are doing, because if you continue, then chances of complications are more. So if you keep these three things in mind, then of course if you are doing intrauterine adhesions Asherman syndrome grade 4 or grade 3, then you can minimize the complications by using the intraoperative uh, ultrasound. So I hope I am very clear in the answer, and I have given you the answer. Next is Rahul Bhatt from Delhi. Lateral metroplasty, can we do it with seizure? Yes, you can do it with seizure, but usually these micro seizures are very fragile. So many times you break them when you are doing lateral metroplasty. So you have to be little careful, and there are two types of seizures available, where both blades are moving and where one blade is moving. So seizures with one blade moving is better for lateral metroplasty, and you have to take very minimal tissue in between the seizure blade. So it may take little more time, but yes, you can do. It is sometimes difficult to handle the lateral metroplasty with seizure. So both options are available. Uh, Another question from Mr. Samar, Dr. Samar Khanna, Ahmedabad. Tips for histoscopic myomectomy. Yes, I have uh, told you one method where, because the problem is with myomectomy, histoscopic myomectomy, uh, if you are dealing with type 0 and 1, there is usually no problem. But when you are having a high score, or grade 2 and grade 3 myoma, then the fluid overload, the duration, as well as incomplete surgery, these are the problems. So try to map before how much is the myometrial invasion in myoma, so you can plan it better. uh, you can use histoscopic modulator that takes less time, but that is not available with everyone. uh, Try to minimize the damage to the endometrium. Use low current, not very high current is required, and try to finish the myomectomy within any procedure. Try to finish it within 30 minutes. So if you are able to do the procedure within 30 minutes, chances of complications are less. Another question is from Dr. Sohan Lal, Bangalore. In a 2D ultrasound, how do I differentiate between a submucous fibroid and endometrial polyp, apart from using saline any other way? Yeah, in 2D ultrasound, it may be a little difficult, because submucous fibroid and endometrial polyp, they usually look same. But if you do saline infusion sonography, then it becomes little easier, because the submucous fibroid, you can see the endometrial reflection coming onto the fibroid, and on the base, at the base, you will be seeing the myometrium, myometrial echoes. In endometrial polyp, at the base, you will not be seeing any myometrial echoes. So that is how you differentiate. And usually there is a feeding vessel there in endometrial polyp. So that you can see on color Doppler. Simarpreet Ahuja from Mumbai. How do I differentiate an endometrial polyp? Same, I think the same answer, same type of question. Basically, when you send it for histopathology, that is the final confirmation. But before pre-operative, but I told you, you can take help of saline infusion sonography, and there will always be endometrium reflection. Acute angle, actually in endometrial polyp, the endometrium is having acute angle, while in fibroid, you will see the reflection and there will be myometrial tissue in the base. Dr. Mohan from Haryana, any alternatives which can use instead? The question is not very clear. What alternative you are talking? So I'm sorry, I couldn't understand your question. Dr. Rita, how will you remove 9 centimeter, mostly submucous fibroid, not pedunculated? Large fibroid can be removed by resectoscope, so that is how you are going to remove. Uh, any size can be removed by hysteroscopy. Only thing, when the size is large, it may be difficult to resect, but for that you require a lot of expertise, and good distension system is required to deal with larger fibroid. uh, what would be the basic procedure for guiding a student for treating septa? uh, Dr. Rahim from Delhi. See, whether you are a student or you are doing a surgery, the principle remains same. The basic procedure remains same. A good distension, pre-op diagnosis is very important. If you are having the 3D ultrasound, usually, basically with even 2D ultrasound, you can make the diagnosis. But whenever you are in doubt whether it is a septa or bicornuate uterus, you should use a 3D ultrasound for mapping. And once the diagnosis is certain, you can go ahead for septal resection. A good distension system is very, very important in any histoscopic surgery. If the distension is not good, you cannot operate, and especially in septa, because the cavity is not nicely visualized. Uh, Septa again can be of two types. One is the muscular septa and one is fibrous septa. Muscular septa, they are more vascular. Fibrous septa, they are not vascular. And so that can be diagnosed beforehand, and you can use the appropriate current. Uh, Start doing the procedure from the tip, okay, and try to enter the septa from one side and take out the Collins on the other side. So that is very important. If you are dissecting from one side and moving on to the other side, usually the surgery is without complication. Dr. Bharti from Mumbai, tubal cannulation has limitation. Yes, tubal cannulation has limitation, and the selection of cases is very, very important. As I have told you that it is fruitful only in those cases where only the uh, corneal damage is there. If it is a bipolar disease, fimbria is also adherent and other thing, it may not be very fruitful surgery. So rest of the tube should be good, then only it is justified to do tubal cannulation. So put a histoscope, put a laparoscope and see the tube, the rest of the tube. If it is good, then you can proceed. So limitations of tubal cannulation are there, and that you have to keep in mind. I think I have answered all the questions. So there is no
Yeah, sir.
more
That's all with
questions
the,
here.
Yes, sir. That's all
Yeah.
with the questions now. I'll
Yeah.
request you for a short takeaway message for the doctors, sir.
Yeah, it was nice to connect, but only problem here was I couldn't see the audience and I couldn't see myself also. So, but yes, certainly it was a good platform, and the message for as far as the subject is concerned, endoscopy is a integral part of infertility management. We should use more and more hysteroscopy because that is the only intervention uh, to improve the endometrial lining and receptivity. There are many methods to many interventions which have been suggested, but uh, hysteroscopy is one intervention which is supposed to be the best one as far as the endometrial correction is concerned. So hysteroscopy should be used very judiciously, and uh, it should not remain a underused modality. Uh, as far as the laparoscopic tubal correction is concerned, I have already highlighted one has to choose uh, a right patient for tubal surgery. Otherwise, in this era of IVF, all patients which have tubal damage, they should not be attempted tubal surgery. They should go for ERT rather than wasting time in tubal surgery. But some of the patients, they can, like tubal cannulation is one procedure which can be offered to all patients who are having only corneal damage. Uh, Counseling is very, very important. Whatever surgery you are doing, counseling should be thorough, limitations should be told, and it should be a time bound prognosis, should be explained. So I think if you keep these things in mind, you can use endoscopy uh, for a better outcome. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. Uh, Thank you. At the end, I will like to say again that I am a candidate for Vice President Foxy this year. So please vote and support for me in this coming Foxy election. Thank you very much.